بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا السابقون بالإيمان وترجع في قلوبنا غدد آمر إنك رؤوف رحيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. So we continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Deliverance from Error, المنقذ من الضلال, and we have reached the categories of those who seek the truth. القول في أصناف الطالبين. Of course, here he addresses the four major seekers, if you will. Let's remember that Imam Al-Ghazali did not leave a stone unturned. He checked practically every single sect. We spoke about this before. Every trend in Baghdad, and of course beyond, from his days in Nishapur and from his knowing what was going on in Tus and in the vicinity of Tus. So these are the four major seekers. We read the English, and there is a very important point that usually when people translate do not get a message that Imam Ghazali sends through his narrative about these four categories. He said, when God Most High, of His kindness and abundant generosity, had cured me of this sickness. The sickness, remember the 2 months in which he was in that state of skepticism, of doubt, of systematic doubt rather. I was of the view that the categories of those seeking the truth were limited to four groups. The mutakallimun, who allege that they are men of independent judgment and reasoning. The Batinites, who claim to be the unique possessors of Ta'aleem. We'll get back to the notion of Ta'aleem and the privileged recipients of knowledge required from the infallible Imam. The philosophers, who maintain that they are the men of logic and apodictic demonstration. And number four, the Sufis, who claim to be the familiars of the divine presence and the men of mystic vision and illumination. Now, in Arabic, I'm going to highlight only one issue, which is basically the verb in each sentence. المتكلمون يدعون وهم يدعون، والباطنية وهم يزعمون، والفلاسفة وهم يزعمون، والصوفية وهم يدعون. And this is really the message of Imam Al-Ghazali. He used the same verb for the mutakallimin and for the Sufiya. And the same, so number 1 and 4 are the same. And the same verb for the Batinites and the philosophers. يزعمون. والباطنية هم يزعمون والفلاسفة هم يزعمون. The English, we have the Batinites and the philosophers having this, the Batinites and the Sufis, rather, who have the translator used the word claim, who claim, the Batinites who claim, the Sufis who claim. I think this kind of translation, and in general, I've seen it before. People did not really get that message from Imam Al-Ghazali. So yes, there are four seekers, but Imam Al-Ghazali put uh, another subdivision. The Mutakallimun and the Sufis are on one side, and the Batinites and the philosophers are on the other, simply based on the language. So we can use, for example, claim for the Mutakallimun and the Sufis in English, and we can use allege for the Batinites and the philosophers. The issue is to make a distinction between these four, like making them literally a group of two, and so yes, four seekers, but we have two groups, and the ta'lim, since it's also transliterated, so you will have English letters, but the word ta'lim is there. Ta'lim, ta'lim, we use this word for every single form of education in Arabic. So Ministry of Education, Wizart al-Ta'lim, we add tarbiyah, which is also not the correct notion. People would like, in the past, we have used the word adab rather than tarbiyah, and it's not really. It's not really. They don't really. You cannot use them interchangeably. They are not the same. So education, teaching. Ta'lim is teaching. So nothing distinguishes this, except the fact that the Batinites claim to have acquired this from the infallible Imam. But by the time of the Imam of Al-Ghazali, there were no infallible Imams from that perspective. Especially if you talk about, if the Imam is absent, how could you claim that you learn from the infallible Imam? And we should already say that beyond Prophet Muhammad SAW, no infallibility anymore for any person. Prophets in Islam are infallible, and at the same time they could make judgmental mistakes, but no grave sins, the way we read sometimes in Genesis and in the Old Testament. I then, as Imam Al-Ghazali continues, I then said to myself, the truth cannot transcend these paths of the quest for truth. Hence, if the truth eludes them, there remains no hope of ever attaining it, for there can be no desire to return to servile conformism once it has been abandoned, since a prerequisite for being a servile conformist is that one does not know himself to be such. But when a man recognizes that the glass of his servile conformism is shattered, an irreparable fragmentation and a mess which cannot be mended by patching and piecing together, it can only be melted by fire and newly reshaped. I therefore lost no time in following these different ways and making a thorough study of the views of these groups. I applied myself first to the science of Kalam, secondly to the way of philosophy, thirdly to the teachings, to talk about the Batinites, to the teachings of the Batinites, and fourthly to the ways of the Sufis. The aim and purport of the science of Kalam. I began then with the science of Kalam, which I summarize in the form of notes. I carefully studied the works of the most meticulous mutakallimun. One might, Kalam, of course, is speech, and one might translate the mutakallimun as the Muslim theologians, if you will. But it has one purpose, which Imam Ghazali will reach, inshallah, very soon. And I wrote on this subject what I had a mind to write. Subsequently, however, I found it a science adequate for its own aim, but inadequate for mine. For its aim to simply to converse, or to conserve rather, to protect, to conserve حفظ, the creed of the Orthodox for the Orthodox, and to guard it from the confusion introduced by the innovators. In the past, God Most High and Praiseworthy communicated to His servants by the tongue of His Apostle, the Prophet ﷺ, the Messenger. His Messenger a creed which is the truth, inasmuch as it is for the religious. For the religious, here it says in English, and secular life. It's not secular. The notion of secularism is rather modern, I would say. Imam Al-Ghazali spoke about على ما فيه صلاح دينهم ودنياهم. Okay. So, a creed which is the truth in as much as it is. In fact, it is salah for the good, wholesome upkeep of their religion, and also their dunya, their worldly life. So it's not really secular. One might say that secularism is separation between state and religion. That's one form. The form in France today is anti-religion, specifically when you speak about Islam. A woman is punished if she covers. She is not allowed to go to school if she covers. She is not allowed to go to assume public office if she covers. In certain, she cannot, if a woman, fully covered, takes a dip into water, she faces a fine. Be she might be removed from the beach, etc. A prohibition of the abaya, a prohibition of the jilbab, prohibition of the, and it's more. That's not really the whole story. So it cannot be. The French laïcité is definitely, loaded now with Islamophobic measures. The sound basis as articulated in detail in the Quran and traditions. Then Satan, through the sinister suggestions for the innovators of the innovators, injected notions opposed to orthodoxy, opposed to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, which is every religion begins with orthodoxy, if you will. With the result that the innovators became passionately addicted to these errors and all but ruined the true creed of its adherents. So God Most High raised up the group of the Mutakallimun and motivated them to champion orthodoxy by systematic discussion designed to disclose the deceptions introduced by the contriving innovators, contrary to the traditional orthodoxy. This gave rise to the science of Kalam and its practitioners. A group of Mutakallimun did indeed perform the task assigned to them by God. They applied protected orthodoxy and defended the creed, which had been readily accepted from the prophetic preaching, and boldly counteracted the heretical innovations. But in so doing, they relied on premises which they took over from their adversaries, being compelled to admit them either by uncritical acceptance or because of the community's consensus, or by simple acceptance deriving from the Quran and the traditions. Most of their polemic was devoted to bringing out the inconsistencies of their adversaries and criticizing them for the logically absurd consequences of what they conceded. This, however, is of little use in the case of one who admits nothing at all except the primary and self evident truths. So, Kalam was not sufficient in my case, nor was it a remedy for the malady of which I was complaining. Just remember, in Arabic, in the introduction of this subtitle about علم الكلام, he said وافيا بمقصوده غير واف بمقصودي. That summarizes really everything. But then he goes into all these details to explain why it does not fulfill Imam Al-Ghazali's need. It does not answer his question. To be sure, when the discipline of Kalam acquired some status and had been much engaged in for some length of time, the Mutakallimun showed an earnest desire for attempting to defend orthodoxy by the study of the true natures of things. So the rise of Kalam is associated with the presence of innovation, errors, new trends that cannot be justified. They cannot basically be reconciled with the notion of orthodoxy as it is presented here. In Ihya Ulum al-Din, in the revival of the religious sciences, Imam Al-Ghazali says that the need for ilm al-kalam is similar to the need of of guards for the pilgrims if there are highway robbers. So if it's really safe, then there is no need for guards. So it's the almost like the badraqa in Arabic in the Ihya Ulumuddin could be a reference to like a group of guards. So the mutakallimun, their role is to defend, to guard. And here it's not about thieves. Maybe one, if one stretch it metaphorically, then those who steal from the meaning of the religion uh, and switch it with something fake that cannot be reconciled. So it depends whether we have such challenges. And I think that it's extremely important for Muslims to learn, of course, jurisprudence, theology, and by theology we talk about, for example, the Ash'arite theology, knowing how also to uh, explain very well the other. So the Maturidis are pretty close. Both schools uh, start from the acceptance of allegorical interpretation of the of the of verses in the Quran, the appearance of which might be the appearance of which, like the would be problematic if accepted as is. For example, the hand of God is above their hands. Okay, we know very well the nothing is like unto him. ليس كمثله شيء. That's obvious. That's a cornerstone. That's a criterion, and the rest would be that you cannot really attribute, something that is enjoyed by humanity and others. Really, we talk about a hand. We might go back to this, but the idea is you study jurisprudence, you study theology, but today I think that the ilm al-kalam is needed to respond not only to internal discussions or challenges, but also the I think when one responds um, um, to those who adopt the Darwinian theory of evolution. I think there's a need for knowledge of science, but also of ilm al-kalam in order to be able to respond. They would be very capable to respond. All these stereotyped images, it's the role of the mutakallim, even if we don't really say that this person is a mutakallim and she is a mutakallim. Anyone who responds practically is a mutakallim from this perspective, nothing negative, to the contrary. Going back to Imam Al-Ghazali's narrative, they they plunged into the study of substances and accidents and their principles. But since that was not the aim of their own science, the discussion of the subject was not thoroughgoing. Therefore, it did not provide an effective means of dispelling entirely the darkness due to the bewilderment about the differences dividing men. So we have already said that one should be very clear about how to deal with the anthropomorphic verses in the Quran. Uh, I really do not. I do not really appreciate the personal attacks when we discuss these things. Uh, I sincerely think that the Asharites are on the right path. It's not an exclusive. This is not rendering others as non-Muslims. Ma'adallah. No. So again, therefore, it did not provide an effective means of dispelling entirely the darkness due to the bewilderment about the differences dividing men. I do not regard it as improbable that such may have been the result in the case of others. I do not even doubt that it has actually been the experience of a limited group of men, but in a way vitiated by servile conformism in some matters which are not among the primary truths. In any event, my present purpose is to tell the story of my own case, not to express disapproval of anyone who sought a cure in Kalam. For healing remedies differ as the sickness differs, and many a remedy helps one sick man and harms another. So the bottom line, he could not find what he wanted. In essence, there is no substance. Since you take your you form your arguments based on premises taken from the speech, the argument, the talk of your opponents. So there is no substance there, but you learn how to respond to misinformation or misunderstanding, etc. I'm just going to give one example. We can definitely do more. When there's a claim that Islam spread by the sword, the response to this could be, look at the Malay archipelago, all the Malay world. Though we talk about states today, Malaysia, Indonesia, but the Malay world was from the kingdom of Fatani, which is today part of Thailand, almost like a very massive U shape that begins with southern Thailand, goes through Malaysia. Of course, Singapore, which was, at the time, it was part of the Malay world, Indonesia, and even all the way to the Philippines. You might need like 4 hours flight to cover this U-shape uh, series of mostly islands. There was never a war with these people, so that's one way of saying that Islam did not spread by the sword. Another example is that look at our part of the world in the Middle East and in Egypt and Jordan and in Syria and Palestine, in Lebanon. We have had Christians from that time until today. Of course, Jews too. And there was no compulsion. There was no, and we talk about some 1500 years, a little bit less, since the year 636 in Jerusalem. So almost 15 centuries. These 15 centuries, and one cannot claim that the Muslims did not have the time to force all those people. But here they are. They're still here. And in fact, the prophetic model paradigm, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in dealing with the people of the book continues. It manifested itself in the Pact of Umar, the Ahd al-Amariyah, and I love that it is celebrated, and people are talk about for example, how Jordan, how the Hashemite king takes care of the Christians in Jordan, but it's the same story in Palestine and elsewhere. So this is really an issue, and you respond, but there is no. It's not a science with a specific subject. So you respond, and you can go on and on. But that's not what Imam Ghazali was looking for. And after the Mutakallimun, he deals with philosophy and the philosophers. And again, it's a wonderful, really, subtitle here. They are the second seekers, if you will. And inshallah, we'll deal with that tomorrow. Until then, inshallah, subhanakallah wa hamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.